Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call a roll, please.
Gary Farley, Veronica Buchanan.
Here.
Jerry Sartain.
Here.
Joe Machoto, Michael Rather,
Here.
Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. You have the June minutes in your folder that was sent out. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes?
There being none, I move to approve.
Have a motion to be approved. We have a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. They are approved. First item of business is a request by Raymond Daughtery, who is requesting a temporary special exemption approval for the outdoor sale of food. What do you have on that, please?
Application 2018-17 is a request for temporary special exception approval allowing the outdoor sale of food upon the property located in the Commercial Services Zoning District. It's a 1.10 commercially zoned property, part of a larger parcel. However, this portion is developed as a commercial office and retail center. The applicant would like to locate their food trailer on a portion of this property. It will be reliant on the existing parking that serves the commercial use that's established on the property. It is a temporary request. This is any approval for the temporary special exception would be good for a maximum of 6 months, and after that time the applicant would be required to reapply for approval. So we have taken photos of the property. The trailer is actually located on the property now. This was the result of a call that our code enforcement had received. Mr. Daughtery, in order to address the code violation, he came into our offices to determine what was required to be legally established upon this property, and he has applied, and that's why we're here tonight. And so this is the surrounding area. The site is commercially developed, and the adjacent site to the west is commercially developed, and then you have rural and agricultural properties surrounding the properties in question. So you can see the location of the food trailer in relation to the existing site, and there's ample parking to serve the trailer and the existing commercial use. We received several informational calls regarding this request, but no one has indicated any opposition to the request. And that concludes our presentation.
You have someone here representing this request. You'll come forward, please, to the podium. Give us your name up here for our record. Do you have any other information you want to share on this? What kind of food are you be serving?
Little everything. I have like 7 out of 8 items. Hibachi, burgers. Kind
You'll cook it on site?
of in the trailer. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you done this before? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Jerry?
Yeah. Just a couple questions. You have business license,
Yes, sir.
quality rating, your health rating.
100%.
So you have a grade A rating posted?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have 100%.
Any other questions?
So you won't be, I see that you're going to be here permanent, but you won't be pulling it off going to other different locations, right?
I might do it. I would like to do some events and come back. Just once in a great while.
For 6 months, is that what you're requesting, 6 months?
At a time. Yes,
This is
sir.
a trial balloon you're putting up? Trial balloon?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
get on my feet.
All right, you may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who wants to speak on this request.
name's Steve Pearson.
Commissioner, give us your name and
I did. My name's Steve Pearson. I live at 2841 East Jefferson Pike of the 2nd District.
thank you
Good.
for being here.
I come up to represent Mr. Daltrey. I've viewed his food trailer. It doesn't seem to take away from anything there. We already have a food trailer up on the other end of Las Casas, up above Brown's store. I think it's a good addition for the community. The people out there are kind of searching for somewhere to eat, maybe eat different things that's not offered in the convenience markets. From my opinion, he's good, but it's y'all's decision's not mine. Yes, ma'am.
Have any of the constituents complained to you?
Not the first one.
Okay.
Not the first one. In fact, the community seems to welcome him with open arms. They really do.
Any other questions of the commissioner? We grill him while we have him up here.
Come on with it.
I didn't ask it before, but he's not going to be living there, right?
No, absolutely not. He's got a very neat trailer. It's really impressive, to go by and see how neat it is for a food site. People stop, get their food, take it home.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? If you'll come forward. To the podium.
My name's Ben Livingston. I live in Irving Hills subdivision, which is right directly across the street from where this is located. My property is at 119 Irving Hills, and if you look, it's the property, the backside of my house. I get a nice view of this across the road. And so being that I'm a person that's generally supports small business always, and anybody who's trying to make a living, I'm always good with that. And I'm not here to oppose him doing this outright. But what I do want to request is if you're going to approve this, that you make it a requirement that at the end of each day that they take the tent that they put up down and the chairs and the tables and the trash can, because in all frankness, there's days when it just looks tacky. It's the only word I can think of. I mean, it would be okay if it was just a trailer. But at the end of the day, if you just take that stuff down and pack it up, because there's been a number of days they've left that stuff out. And if you didn't know better, you would think there was a bunch of good old boys that had been out there the night before drinking and they just left their stuff out. Or it kind of looks like someone had a little flea market table set up and they were out there selling something. So I'm not opposed to it, and if you guys want to approve it, I would only ask that you stipulate at the end of each day that he take all that stuff up, because Irving Hills subdivision is a nice subdivision. My property's worth a little bit.
This is for a 6 months trial. If there are problems that come up during that time, please come back to us.
But you can't stipulate then that he does that.
I don't know about that.
Well, I was just asking. I don't know. I'm just asking if you could make that a
We can do anything we
stipulation.
want to if we can get a motion on it, but that would be up to the board.
Because as
And another thing you could do, you could talk to the owner out there and see if you could have, and the commissioner. I'm sure they want to be good neighbors, so I don't think that.
Well, I would hope that they would. I'm the treasurer of the homeowners association in the subdivision. I haven't made an issue of it with the subdivision.
I'm sure the commissioner will listen to you.
Well, anyhow, I would just ask you guys if you could make that a condition. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying to oppose it in general.
Okay.
But if you can't ask them to do that, I wish you would oppose it, because it just there's at times it just looks tacky.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very
Anyone
much.
else? You'll come forward.
My name's John McFarland, and I'm the property owner, and I understand what he was talking about there. Raymond and I did have a talk this afternoon about that, and it will be taken care of.
I appreciate you coming up saying that. You know, sometimes when you have an agreement with a neighborhood like that, it's better than what we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Close the public hearing. We're open for a motion on this.
Motion approved, Mr.
Have
Chairman.
a motion be approved. Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan. Jerry Sartain. Michael Rather.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes, it is approved. The next item we have is John Gould, and he is requesting a special exemption approval to allow a non-commercial storage facility for personal storage. And what do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-18 involves property located off Ridley Earp Road and Manchester Highway. The request is for special exception approval to allow the establishment of a non-commercial storage facility to be used for personal storage upon a property located in the residential medium zone. This is the 14.5-acre property. It was once used as a quarry for some road improvements in the area. The applicant would like to place the trailer, a 50 by 80 foot building, which is 4,000 square feet, on this property to use it for personal storage. He plans to store a boat, a camper, motorcycle, tools, trailer, and attic items in this structure. The applicant has supplied us with verification that the property does not have soils to support a septic system, so it could not be developed as a single-family home. We have received several informational calls regarding this request, and no one indicated any opposition, and the site happens to be located adjacent to a county convenience center and volunteer fire station. So these are photos of the sign that staff posted along the property and the surrounding area. It's heavily wooded, so the structure would not be visible from the road. The applicant plans to place it over 100 feet off of Ridley Earp Road. And so you can see a slight alignment issue, but the structure's being proposed in this general area off the driveway. So that concludes our presentation.
Okay. Do we have someone here, John Goff? John, tell us again, what do you need storage out there? You don't live there, right?
No, sir, I don't
How
live
far
there.
away are you from there?
We are currently building a house in Puckett Station.
Okay.
So just have a lot of items that we're looking to store, and we go to that property often. As you can see, it's an old rock quarry.
Yeah, and this is absolutely going to be just for your personal storage and nothing else.
Yes, sir.
And the reason I ask that, from time to time, we have had these kinds of requests, and they turn into something else.
Sure.
So we don't want anything like that to happen.
I understand.
Okay? Any questions, please? Thank you. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on it. Close. Do we have someone? Yeah, if you'll come around, please. Got to get your hand way up. I almost missed you.
My name is Catherine Diane Michelle. I live at 7467 Ridley Earp Road. I'm directly across from it. Okay, he wants a 4,000 square foot building there to put a boat in, automobile,
It's his personal storage.
personal storage.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there going to be a restroom there? I understand it's already stated that he is not, but will there be?
Don't have that in.
The applicant has indicated it's not. There cannot be a septic system on there. The only thing that he can have on site would probably be something like a portable potty or something.
He needs a lot of portable potties. And I'll tell you why. 38 years I've lived across from that rock quarry, and I've only said anything about it 2 times that I know of in a public venue. There have been young men and young women who have banged on my front door because of sexual problems. I'll just go ahead and say some of them were raped. I've had police out there. There has been police out there. I don't mind, it's his property, I don't mind the storage at all. But are there going to be beds in it? He just said he had a boat with a bed in it. It's perfect setup for sex trafficking. I'm just not ready for all of that. And I'll tell you now, from now on, you're going to hear from me. Like I said, I've been there for 38 years, and I've not made any problems for anybody out there. But my foot's starting to come down.
Well, thank you for coming up. We appreciate that, and we'll certainly monitor it very closely. And if you see something going on, just pick up that phone, call the police.
I have in the past, and I will more so.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. You can call us as well. Anyone else? It's okay. Anyone else on the public hearing? Close the public hearing. Any more discussion? Entertain a motion on it.
Move be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to be approved.
I'll second it.
Have a second. Call roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Michael Rather. Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item we have is a request by Huddleston Steel Engineering, who is special exemption for a mini storage business. And this is, what do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-19 involves property located at Miller Road. They are seeking special exception and approval for the establishment of a mini storage business upon the property located in the Employment Activity Center zone. And you may remember a couple months ago we considered a mini storage facility with a commercial component along Miller Road, and it was on the adjacent property. Since the approval of that special exception, the applicant has added additional acreage that is adjacent to this property along Miller Road, and they would like to expand the mini storage facility onto this adjacent acreage. As a result, they have platted the 2 lots together, but since this portion of the property was not included in the original approval, we are appearing before you tonight, or the applicant is seeking special exception of approval. They have eliminated the commercial element that was originally proposed in the first application. They are currently going through site plan review now. They have we have reviewed it for our special regulations for mini storage facilities and given them, the first round of comments back, for which they have responded. But they cannot get site plan approval unless special exception approval is made for this adjacent property. We received several informational calls regarding this request, but no one has indicated any opposition. And we posted a sign on the property. So this is the surrounding area. There is another mini storage facility just further up Miller Road, and the mulch facility that's at the corner of Sledge and Miller Road. And this is the first submittal. This is subject to change as a result of it going through site plan review, and it has, but they plan to establish more mini storage units along this property, and they have eliminated the commercial portion that was in the first application, but that was permitted by right. They would not have had to appear for the special exception. So we find that it meets the criteria, and that concludes our presentation.
Have anyone here from Huddleston Corlew? Now, you've previously been approved for mini storage here on this site.
Yes, sir.
And you're just changing your operation.
That's exactly right. My name is Clyde Round, Huddleston Steel Engineering, and that's correct. The client had just acquired the adjacent property, and after doing some business evaluation, they felt like the commercial wasn't as practical out there, and it'd be easier just to go ahead and expand the storage operation. So that's their intention. The primary phase will be on that initial property, and as the business expands, they'll expand into the newly acquired section.
And the reason for this is you acquired additional land there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the only motivation, that they were able to acquire the land, so they wanted to expand the operation. And looking at staff comments, we were able to meet all the criteria. We got that setback that was a concern. That would be evaluated in site planning evaluation. As was mentioned, the plan has been resubmitted, and the criteria that the staff is concerned about, the expectations are being met currently.
I guess it won't be too bad since you back up to eastbound I-24. If it was westbound, you might have a few wrecked cars in there, the way they drive.
Sure.
Just an observation. Any questions? Any questions from the board? Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on it. Close the public hearing. We have a motion on this.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
Have a motion that be approved. We have a second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item is a continuing barrel pit request by Richard Reeves, and this is temporary special exemption approval and setback requirement approval. And what do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-20 involves property located in the vicinity of 950 Jefferson Pike. It's a request for temporary special exception approval for a burrow pit with relief from the setback and area requirements for burrow pits in the residential medium zoning district. And this is an overall aerial of the site, as you can see, and we have been presented on many occasions a request for special exception involving most of this property. The latest request was processed back in March, I believe, and with application 2018-06, and they came in and requested an extension of the burrow pit activities on this site and the conditions we established in our staff report. And today's request involves some changes to the original request. They are adding a 9.1 acre site, or 9.11 acre site that used to be the drip field for the Riverwalk subdivision. It has since been relocated to a 13 acre portion on another location on the larger tract, and the applicant is seeking permission to add this 9.11 acre site to the excavation activities. They are seeking relief from the setback requirements between properties, since it is a separate parcel, so that it can be continuous and not have a 150-foot setback between two adjacent properties that are zoned residential medium. They are seeking to expand this 5.3 acre area here. As a result of this request, they are also asking to eliminate two previously approved sites, one being a 3.4 acre site and the other being, I think, a 12.4 acre site. from the original plan. And that will result in an increase in the total area that's affected. And originally, they had a variance to affect 32.87% of the total site area. But with the addition of this 9.1 acre site, additional excavation area on the original site, and in consideration of the elimination of the 2 previously approved sites that won't be excavated, and they will be platting a 13-acre site and transferring the new drip location, and Mike will go into that detail, to CUD for the Riverwalk step system. It has resulted in an increase of the area affected, or the percentage affected, and this is also addressed in their request that they're seeking permission to increase that area affected. So these are pictures of the site. We posted signs on 3 different locations. We mailed out notices. I've not received any informational calls. I don't believe anyone else in the office has received any calls regarding this latest request. So this is the progress and proposed exhibit, and I apologize, well, it does show up a little better here. These 2 light green areas were previously approved. They will be eliminated if you approve this request. And the fuchsia pink areas are the areas that are currently in progress. And this is the survey that, if you approve, we are asking to incorporate this into your approval as part of the conditions. So we have a starting point to know what's been approved and what no longer is approved. And so this red shading here represents the area that will be added to the excavation activities. The applicant is also, as a result of Commissioner Piercy's concerns at the last hearing, they're proposing to install a 3-foot vegetative berm along this property line to aid in the view shed or landscape for surrounding residents.
What's the distance on that property line? I'm sorry, did you have it?
Well, they are not proposing to encroach into the 150-foot setback requirement for the residents of Riverwalk.
Okay. Okay.
They are seeking the relief because currently it is in 2 sections now, and if they had to provide a 150-foot setback between this property and the 9.11 acre, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for the applicants. And John Cortez, our stormwater inspector, is here. He has been monitoring the site and its progress, and he can go over these photos and just tell me when to advance.
Yeah, these photos right here, this shows what the finished product will look like when they're done and they are no longer doing any kind of activity in the area. This is what it will look like. The last inspection I went out on was Tuesday, and I was out there and I was walking the property, saw wildlife out there. So it's definitely being incorporated back into the wildlife area. You can see it's all grown up, and you can't see that there's been any construction work out there. You can go to the next one. Again, the same general area. This is part of about 25, 28 acres that's been already brought back. This is an area that's towards the, if you were looking at the map again, towards the northern part of the activity. This is their recent where they went in and put seed down and covered it with straw. Like I said, this was taken on Tuesday. You can see it's quite a large area that they're working in. It's got adequate coverage for the straw and the seed. And there's where it's blending back into some of the areas that are already starting to take.
They may have to go back and reseed some of that area this fall.
Yeah, it's just going to be a continuous cycle. Some places it'll take, some places there, you see some bare areas, there's just a lot of rock in the area, so they'll just come back and they'll cover a large area, and then they'll come back and cover up what's left uncovered.
And we've also had the Office of Information Technology perform drone aerial surveys of the property, and I'll pull that up real quick. Let's see. All right, this is an older area to the south that's already been stabilized. This area in blue has been stabilized, and I'll turn some of these layers off so you can see. And the new areas that they've recently seeded and strawed are up here, and I think down here, and there's a small area back here, so that you can kind of see what's going on. And I'll turn some of these layers off so we can see. But this is what the drone flight imagery looks like, and you can kind of see from what it looked like before. Just if I can get the computer to catch up with me. But here we go. Well, maybe not. Computers being persnickety. But you can see one of these older areas that under the old image that was not stabilized, but this area is now coming back. It's green. Vegetation has taken hold, and it's being reestablished. But other than that, we're satisfied with the work that they're doing to recover the site. Like Danielle was saying, the old drip dispersal area for Riverwalk in the CUD lot has been relocated to the southern end of Riverwalk, and this will be deeded over to CUD and transferred to them. But other than that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, we'll have anyone here, I guess Ted? Ted, do you want to share any other information? You're making a living off of this, aren't you?
No, my son likes to eat it.
Sorry.
You know, it's going to be short by lawyer definitions. I'm Ted Goodman of Murphy & Goodman Attorneys. We represent the applicants, which are Joan and Richard Reeves in this matter. Next slide. In this request, we're requesting a renewal of the special exception for borrow pits. Under this request, some borrow pits are to be eliminated, some are to be revised, and one new borrow pit is to be added. This allows the Reeveses to sell clay to the adjoining BFI site. Next slide. The property, this is the Joan and Richard Reeves property, which is 215.66 acres on East Jefferson Pike, as well as the 9.11 acre Rio Barrow property. Both of these properties are directly adjacent to the BFI site. Next slide. The revisions that we're asking for, the 3.1 acre borrow pit on East Jefferson Pike is to be eliminated. The 12.4 acre borrow pit to the east of Riverwalk is also to be eliminated. So together, about 15.5 acres of borrow pits will be eliminated. There's an agreement contingent upon the approval of the BZA to purchase the 9.11 acres that was previously used as the CUD drip field, and then use that as a borrow pit. The proposal is to use that entire 9.11 acres and the 5.3 acre area of existing Reeves property directly adjacent to that as a new borrow pit. And also, as shown by comparing Exhibit D to the application and the prior approved map, some of the existing borrow pits are different in size and layout, and so we request approval of the borrow pits as shown on Exhibit D to the application. Next slide, please. So this is the map that somewhat very similar to the one we've all become very familiar with. This is East Jefferson Pike. This is the Riverwalk subdivision. This is the BFI property. These areas here, and they're pink on what I was looking at, but these areas here in pink are areas where excavation either, that's areas where excavation is either ongoing or is already complete and reclamation is in progress. These green areas, that's a 12.4 acre borrow pit that we're asking to have eliminated, and this is the 3.1 acre borrow pit that we're asking to have eliminated. This notch here, that's the 9.11 acres that's to be purchased. And then this area is the existing Reeves property that we're asked to have a new borrow pit established there. This area, that is where the 3-foot berm that was referenced would be constructed. Next slide, please. This is sort of more of a zoomed in view, so it's easier to see. Again, there's the areas where borrow pits either are ongoing or have already been completed with reclamation underway. This shows the new borrow pit at the 9.11 acres and the new borrow pit at the 5.3 acres. Of course, as you see, that 12.4 acre borrow pit is no longer there, and that 3.1 acre borrow pit previously approved is no longer there. And then there's East Jefferson Pike. That's where the 3-foot berm we're proposing to construct would be. This blue area indicates we're required to stay back, to have a 50-foot setback from the BFI property line, but the request is to make that a sloped setback so it's not just a drop-off. And then right here, by the way, that's where the new CUD drip field will be. It's difficult to see it outlined there, but that's where the new CUD drip field will be. Next slide, please. This proposal comes with, of course, a number of benefits to the neighbors. The 3.1 acre borrow pit that is being eliminated was a lot closer to Riverwalk than the proposed new borrow pit. The new borrow pit is also closer to the recipient of the dirt and further from Riverwalk, and this will be a net decrease in the acreage of borrow pits. Next slide, please. Of course, as we mentioned, in accordance with Commissioner Piercy's suggestion, the applicants will be adding a 3-foot berm along the northern edge of the borrow pit on East Jefferson Pike to create a view buffer, and the applicants have committed to transfer the 13.64 acres to the south of Riverwalk to CUD for the new step sewer system. And that comes with an additional benefit of it virtually eliminates the possibility that 13.64 acres would have any further development. Next slide, please. Some of the variances that we're requesting that the new property be owned by Joan Reeves individually, that Rio Barrow LLC would transfer record title to the property no later than 6 months after completion, requesting to be able to extract dirt from the entire 9.11 acres, that there be no requirement of setback between this 9.11 acres and the property that the Reeveses already own, and the proposed area coverage would be 72.33 acres, and now that includes the proposed new borrow pits and the areas that are in progress now, as well as areas where we're already done and reclamation is underway. And that would be 34.26% of the entire combined properties, and that also accounts for the reduction of the 13 acres that would have already been transferred to CUD, and also requesting to slope the 50-foot buffer with BFI. Next slide, please. This, of course, does not extend or expand the life or scope of the landfill. The clay is normally trucked in by dump trucks across the public roads, so they would inevitably get the clay from from some other source, if not from this property, which would require extensive dump truck trips across the public roads. This merely allows the clay to be obtained, taken directly across the fence line without ever going on the road system. Next slide. That takes about 50 dump truck trips a day off the roads. That's about 60,000 dump truck trips over the life of the project, which of course preserves the roads themselves, reduces the possibility of traffic accidents, and reduces congestion. Next slide, please. The Reeveses reaffirm and will continue to honor all of their prior commitments made to the neighbors, to the county, and to this board. All of those commitments and promises are memorialized in writings on file with the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. As a highlight of some of those, excavation occurs from only one 5-acre section or less at a time. Prior to extracting the clay, the topsoil is removed and stored on site. After the activities are complete, the topsoil is returned and the property is reseeded to restore it. The goal of the project is 6 months after the project is complete, the land should appear undisturbed. Next slide. This is very similar to the photograph that the county took that you were already shown. This is a recently excavated area with reclamation in the early stages. As you see, there's been a very healthy layer of straw put down. There's also grass seed in that, of course. Next slide. This is a reclaimed area where excavation occurred in between 2014 and 2015. And you can see the results of the reclamation plan. Next slide. Of course, no blasting will occur during this project. Dump trucks and service trucks involved are prohibited from entering or exiting through any residential neighborhood, and excavation occurs only during daylight hours. Next slide. All borrow pits are set back at least 150 feet from all Riverwalk property lines, and the applicant will continue to utilize extensive efforts to prevent dust, erosion, and air pollution. Next slide. And of course, the BZA retains extensive oversight over this project. Y'all have probably gotten tired of seeing me by now. We're required to come back to request an extension at the end of each permitting period, which is 6 months with a potential of a 3-month administrative extension. So at the least, we're required to come back before y'all every 9 months, which allows the BZA to continue to police the applicant's fulfillment of their commitments and obligations to the county, to their neighbors, and to this board. Next slide, please. And that is a reclaimed area from where excavation occurred between 2015 and 2016. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Ted. Appreciate it. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Commissioner, come around.
All right. Y'all have had no calls because you don't live close enough. But
I did get a call from you.
That's right. That's right. I have just a slight concern. First of all, on our 3-foot berm that's being proposed to build, I would really like to hear that said as 3 foot in height, because a berm can be 3 foot wide and 2 inches tall. But that would be the purpose of having the berm, would be to block the views, put the height on it. My other concern, can property be acquired that's not owned today without going through the process of the Planning Commission and through the full commission? I don't know. I'm asking you that. The biggest talk in the area is the reclaiming factor on the 5 acres, to take the dirt away, reclaim the 5 acres, and then take dirt off 5 more acres. A lot of people think it's not quite caught up. We might be a little behind, and of course, weather plays part in that. But that's one of the biggest concerns of the community out there, is keeping it caught up closer than it is today, maybe. Something would really concern me a little further than that would be, is this their last request? Is this the last trip for an extension? Will this do the farm?
I doubt it. I doubt it. This has been going on for some
For
time.
a long time. I think it started in 2013.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to see the recovery caught up before all the farm was gone. And I have another question for the committee or you or whoever. If the property is transferred from one ownership to another ownership, does the liability of reclaiming the land for the prior owner cease? And is it passed on to the other owner? You know, some people might, well, that's my question.
I don't think so. I think
You don't think it can be passed on, it sticks with the prior?
Still liability is there.
But that's my concerns. They're doing good. They're adding more land behind the Riverwalk. They're keeping the trucks off the road. We still have trucks on the road. It's not their trucks because they can't begin to service the whole need of the landfill for their dirt. But that's just some of my concerns and some of the questions I'm asked. And I'll be sure the berm's 3 foot high.
Well, of course, the original thinking behind this, as you well know, is they had to have the clay.
Right.
And this was next to them. You
Right.
don't have these trucks out there running up and down the road, which is probably going to save you a lot of problems.
It has.
You know, at least we're monitoring this. If they were out here somewhere else, we would not be monitoring it. And we'll look into some of your questions as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your thoughts on it, Commissioner. I know you've got a hard job out there. I don't envy you. Any other questions, concerns? Anyone else? We're still a public hearing. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. What say you?
I have a question for Ted, if he could come back up for 1 second. Some people may not understand what I'm about to say, but this is a Columbo kind of question.
Okay.
Some of y'all may have gotten that. When you were going through the slides, something just stuck out to me that I just have this Columbo question. What was the significance of interjecting that the property would be solely put into Joan Reeves' name? That just seemed kind of out of place in context of what we were talking about.
Because there will technically be a property line between the property that is owned by Richard and Joan Reeves and the property that is owned by just Joan Reeves. We're required to stay back. The normal requirements are there be a 50-foot setback from all property lines. So that will technically be an internal property line running through running between the property that's owned by just Joan and the property that's owned by Joan and Richard. So that's why there's a request to have relief from that technical requirement.
Okay.
Does that address your question?
That addressed it. I may have missed something, but I caught on to that remark, and I was like, that seems kind of out of place, but
Yeah.
I may have zoned out through part of what you were saying, but
It's a lot of nerdy lawyer stuff.
thank you.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How soon will they start excavating on the Joan property?
On the 9.11 acres, what is the, I think what is the goal on that, Mr. Reeves or Mr. Sadler? That's Mr. Sadler, who runs the operation out there. 5 to 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions? Since we've had Ted back up here, does anyone else want to speak? I'll open this back up. Commissioner, do you have any other comments? Okay. We'll close the public hearing. Does any more questions from the board? Okay, let's put this on a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved.
I'll second it.
Have a second.
Veronica Buchanan,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes, it is approved. The next item we have is a request by Reagan Smith Associates, who are requesting a special exemption approval for a medium community assembly. What do you have on that?
Thank you. Application 2018-21 involves a property located at 8200 Safari Drive. They are seeking special exception approval for a medium community assembly use in the light industrial zoning district. The property is a 56-acre property that is surrounded by the town of Smyrna on its 2 sides. It's an odd-shaped property, and residential medium along the east portion property boundary. And the applicant, River of Life Church, would like to relocate their current facility to this new site off of Safari Drive. The proposed improvements include a 17,250 square feet building. It will have a 400-seat auditorium, and with 400 seats, that qualifies as a medium community assembly, and it is a special exception in the light industrial use. Surrounding land uses is a office/industrial flex space, and we will have photos of that. But this is where we posted the sign. They have it fenced off where you can't enter the property. However, we did post a sign on the property. We did get a couple informational calls. There were concerns about building in that particular area because of flooding issues, and Mike, our county engineer, is here to address any concerns, but they will have to go through site plan review process, and they'll have to demonstrate meeting all of our development standards before they can commence construction. So this is that flex space that we mentioned in the area. So they will be using Safari Drive to access the property. And this is the aerial concept that was provided by the applicant showing the proposed parking areas and building areas. It's their intention to keep most of the site in its natural state. And we find that it meets the criteria for special exception. That concludes our presentation.
Well, I'm just going to address the flooding issue.
Okay.
The location where they're proposing to build the church is significantly higher than the flood elevation, so we didn't see that it would be an issue, but that will be addressed at the site plan stage. I'll turn on the flood zone real quick. The property is situated between Olive Branch and Stewart's Creek over here, so it does have flood on a couple sides. You can see it on either side, but they're proposing to build in this higher ground. You've got a 532 base flood elevation, but the ground is significantly higher, 540 up to 550. So it shouldn't be an issue to build the church in this area.
Does it have water and sewer?
It does have water and sewer. It will be served by the town of Smyrna, and I think I can find, let's see.
Yes, the applicant gave us a letter from the representative of the town of Smyrna indicating that they will provide water and sewer services to this site.
Well,
Mike, building on a higher elevation, will they have to then take their pad and go up a little bit more higher?
Well, if they were in the flood zone, if they were wanting to build in the floodplain for a non-livable space, the finished floor itself would be 1 foot above the base flood elevation, whatever area they're building in. Say they're wanting to build right here, and you have a 532 elevation. The pad, the finished floor of the church itself would have to be 1 foot above that, so at least 533. So at least 1 more foot above the base flood. But they are served, for some reason I can't find that little map, but they are served by the town of Smyrna water and sewer.
Is that it?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please.
Yes, good evening. Kevin Gunther with Reagan Smith, 200 Vine Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Pleased to be here this evening. Thank you, Chairman and Board of Zoning Appeals members. As had been mentioned, the application does meet all the criteria and the special exception. We intend to leave a good portion of the property in a natural state, which would mean that certainly the creek areas, anything that's in the floodway would not be disturbed. In fact, we're not permitted to disturb anything that's actually technically in the floodway. We would be also, with that in mind, we would be leaving a large amount of the trees that kind of surround the property, and I think really screen this from any residential uses. We have quite a bit of setback from any residential uses. And if you'll notice, the access to the property is actually through a commercial and an industrial zone, so we would not be seeing traffic go through residential areas to get to the facility. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Kyle Mullican is also here representing the church this evening, if you have any questions of him.
Any questions?
They currently located at now?
They are currently located on Sam Ridley. They are in the process of selling that property. They've been there for some while. They've owned this property for some time and had plans to move, and now is the time. They've just had all the cards have pulled together to make it the right time.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, subject to...
Have a motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Michael Rather.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The last item we have is a request to reconsider an application for a venue and what?
Okay. You may remember back in March, you considered an application for a rural retreat upon a property located off Shady Lane. It was denied based on concerns regarding the safety of the general public using Shady Lane, the current residents, and as well as potential clients of the applicant. And last month we received a letter requesting that the board reconsider the original decision and if they would allow for rehearing of the request. The applicant submitted the letter and it was distributed last month as well as this month. And so the board can decide tonight whether or not it would like to rehear the case. If you choose to rehear the case, we would advertise it for public hearing for next month. If the board chooses not to rehear the case, then the applicant would have to wait out the 6-month waiting period. And so that was in March 14th. So from the date of that denial, they could wait 6 months and reapply. And so you have the letter in hand, and I believe representatives of the applicant are here tonight as well. And Mr. Rather, did you want to elaborate on the photos here?
Well, I would. If Mr. Farley was so gracious to have a truck drive out onto Shady Lane. So if you look at the photos, this is a picture of one of the county fire trucks maneuvering out on Shady Lane. Your typical fire trucks between, I believe, 8 and 9 feet wide. That's not counting the mirrors or any other apparatus that they may have attached to the sides. Ambulances are typically about the same width, at least 8 feet. And there are portions of Shady Lane that are actually a little more narrow than other portions of Shady Lane, especially at the curves. There are 4 or 5 curves that when you take a 25, 30 foot long vehicle going around those curves, you're basically taking up the entire curve. And you couple that with 100 cars trying to get to a venue, let's say half coming from East Compton Road and half coming from Las Casas, it will be, and I will quote Mr. Farley, a logistic nightmare. Some time ago, several years ago, some of you may remember, I believe it was Kevin Wax's son-in-law's house caught on fire. I think it actually exploded. Carbon monoxide explosion or something. I may be a little wrong on that, but I know the house burned down. And it was a nightmare, from what I understand, just for the fire vehicles out there alone. Last year, I called my father-in-law, who lives nowhere near Shady Lane, and I gathered over the phone that something was wrong. So I got to his house as quick as I could, and right before I kicked his door in, he finally opened the door, and he was suffocating. And I called an ambulance, and they got there really quick and rushed him to the hospital. I didn't know what a pulmonary embolism was until the doctor explained to me it was a blood clot in the lungs. And they found out that he not only had one blood clot in the lungs, he had multiple blood clots in each lung. And I was told by this doctor that had I not gotten to his house when I did, and the ambulance not gotten to his house when they did, and got him to the hospital when they did, he would have died. So with all of that being said, when this case came up back in March, I had envisioned in my mind, with an event going on and me being very familiar with Shady Lane, I had in my mind an event going on and a woman sitting in her house watching Wheel of Fortune, minding her own business, and beginning to have a heart attack. The first responders having a very hard time getting to her home, and seconds are ticking by while they're trying to maneuver through traffic, and they cannot get to her on time. That is jeopardizing the welfare and the safety of the general public. And back in March, that is why I made the motion I made, because that is the very definition of jeopardizing the safety and welfare of the general public. So, I want to make something very clear. I am not against the applicant. I am not against this venue at all. I am against this venue on Shady Lane. I was against it in March. I'm against it now. I'll be against it in 6 months and a year from now until they widen Shady Lane to 2 lanes, as wide as it is on East Compton Road. I'll be all for it. I think I can speak for, I'm not going to speak for everybody on here, I'll speak for myself. I joined this board in 2010, and I've never been up here for the purpose of denying everybody that pops up here. I joined this board to make a difference in this community, to serve this community. I certainly didn't apply for this position and get appointed to this position for the money. I did it to make a difference in this county and to make this county better. And I think by passing this application, we are not making that area out there any better. So with that being said, I think the pictures speak for itself. It would be very hard for a fire truck, a couple fire trucks, an ambulance, other first responders to maneuver Shady Lane with other vehicles on that road, especially upwards of 150. So with that being said, I'm not going to say any more. You know my position, and I will let someone else make the motion, and I'll support it.
Well, we don't have to have a motion on this. Just let me remind you, rehearing may be granted by a majority vote of the board if we think there's a mistake or there's new information or something that we didn't have in consideration. The question I have to you board members, do you want to rehear this? Is there any motion to rehear this? There is not a motion to rehear this. They can come back to us in 6 months. If they have a new proposal, we'd be glad to listen to it at that time. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
And that would be 6 months. 6 months from the date of denial, which is in March, so you might see it even sooner.
You have any other information for us?
No, sir.
Okay. We are adjourned. Hey.